Here's how I make Thanksgiving for 2 as a chef. I haven't had mashed potatoes for a while, so I'm definitely making this, but I only really need 2 potatoes. After peeling the potatoes, I like to make sure I dice them, so this way they just cook a little bit faster. I'm gonna throw these into my sauce pot and fill it with water and start boiling it. I love using fall vegetables for a hash, so I'm gonna be making parsnips, butternut squash, acorn squash, and some beets. And always remember you ate beets the night before, trust me. The butternut squash and the parsnips can kind of cook at the same time, so I'm just tossing them all together with some oil. Add a nice heavy pinch of salt, and then throw this on a sheet tray. This gets baked at about 425 for like 45 minutes. I like to line these up on the sheet tray first and literally just rub down the top of all the acorn squash. Season this with salt as well, and then I like to season all the squash with a bit of Chinese 5-spice. This goes in the same oven, but only for about 25 minutes. I like to make sure I roast the beets separately because otherwise they just make everything look blood red, so it's up to you. Season it with just a bit of oil, a good amount of kosher salt, and then throw this onto the other sheet tray. I also like to make sure I have butter and cream heating up for the mashed potato. Once the potatoes are nice and soft, I'm just gonna drain them. I just put them back in the pot to make cleanup easier later. I'm gonna hit this with some salt, some black pepper, but feel free to use whatever seasonings you want. Then I like to mash it up before I add my cream and butter. This way it actually incorporates a little bit better. Once it's nice and crumbly, I start adding in my milk and butter, but I make sure I don't add all of it at once in case I don't need it. One thing I learned in culinary school and in the industry is to not overmix the potatoes because they can cool down and it makes them gummy. So just mix them enough to get everything incorporated and throw a lid on it. Now, since it's just my wife and I'm just doing chicken breast, but if you want to do a whole turkey and have leftovers, go ahead and do that too. Once the pan's nice and hot, I'm gonna sear off one side of the chicken first. Make sure you season the other side because if you're gonna eat both sides, you may as well season both sides. After a few minutes, I'm just gonna sear this on the other side, throw in a couple of dabs of butter, some rosemary I stole from my neighbors. No, Gandalf, you can't have the rosemary. And this is going in the oven at 325 until it's done. Once the chicken hits about 155, I'm just gonna pull it out so it can rest and I can start making the gravy. And the gravy recipe is super simple. I'm just taking all of the butter and the fats from the chicken and I'm adding some flour to it to make my roux. Once the flour and butter's cooked just a little bit, I'm gonna add about a cup of stock. I'm gonna add a couple dashes of Worcestershire. I like to make sure I taste my gravy even though this is using pan drippings, just in case it needs more salt. Oh, that's perfect. Oh my God, so good. Oh baby. Now the last thing I'm gonna do is sear off some of the vegetables I've already roasted. This just gives them a little bit more flavor and kind of crisps them up a little bit. Give this a quick toss, another little pinch of salt, and this is ready to go. Now plate up is super simple, but I always like to start off with my mashed potatoes first. And then honestly, I'm just gonna start compiling everything else on the plate. I'm only putting a few of the beets on just for some color and some flavor. The acorn squash gets finished with just a little bit of honey. Got a little bit of chicken juice on my recipe cards, but that's okay because they're kind of waterproof. My wife and I are sharing one chicken breast because we're going to second Thanksgiving in a few hours. Make sure you get some of the leftover chicken juice right on top. And then finally, a little bit of the gravy right on top of the chicken, or just pour gravy over everything, you know, it just makes everything better. These 2 meals plus a ton of leftovers only took me a little over an hour. But keep in mind, I've been doing this for about 20 years, so it might take you longer, but nothing you can't finish in the short time span of one movie. Cheers. That's Thanksgiving.